For all of you who are here, welcome. This is the How to Crush It on Twitter workshop. And basically, let's see, what's the backstory here, Matthew?
But you know what? I don't know. We connected on Twitter a few months ago, and then and we tried to meet up, and it didn't, for whatever reason, it just, timing didn't work out. And then you reached out again and said, "Hey, do you want to do something together about Twitter, about like writing and getting followers and being engaging and stuff?" And I don't even think I hesitated. I was like, "Yeah, I'm in. Whatever you got planned, I'll do it." And then you had so you put together all this. I'm more like, if anything, I'm kind of like the guest, where like you kind of had a vision for what this should look like. And I also noticed too, I think our skills kind of complement each other.
Yep.
You strike me as someone who's, you have kind of like the tactical stuff, like if you do X, Y, and Z, like this is the way that I was able to grow mine. And where I'm at, I'm probably a little more, I don't want to say broad, but like almost philosophical. Like, here's a general way that anyone could do it. Like, I'm not going to say, use this hashtag or reply to this person. I'm going to say, hey, here's why you need to make someone, like, here's how you need to think about your social media generally. And so I'm real curious to see what you have to say. For anyone who's watching right now, we don't know each other's presentations. So
Yeah.
It's going to be as much a surprise.
We've also never met before.
And do I get to interrupt you if I have a question? I'm really good at interrupting.
You're encouraged to interrupt me, my man.
Encouraged to interrupt. All right.
Yeah.
Then I'm sure I'll be doing it. I'm sure I'll be asking questions. And obviously we've got the moderators and stuff, so you guys jump in at any time. But I'm just as excited to be a part of this as I am to be watching it when you do your part.
Likewise. Can you tell us a little bit about your work? You're the director of social media at the New York Stock Exchange, which is pretty damn cool.
So I agree. It's a lot of fun. So there's actually a parent company called Intercontinental Exchange, and they own a lot of different businesses. And so I oversee the social media for a majority of those businesses. The one that everyone knows is the New York Stock Exchange. That's just the one has the tenure, it's 230 years, whatever it is that it's been around. So that's the one that everyone knows. But it's also the one where social media moves the needle the most. So it's where I spend a lot of my time. Like, again, since people know about it, when we're active on social, it just kind of pushes it a little further for us with what our objectives are, as opposed to some of our other businesses are a little more, financially focused, a little like less public facing. So we still use social media. We're very active on a handful for businesses.
Yeah.
But the one that, the average person is going to find interesting is the New York Stock Exchange.
Awesome. So I want to just introduce our three panelists, and then I'll introduce myself. So first I'll introduce Will Mannon, who is the course manager, and he runs all the student experience for Rite of Passage, which is my online writing school. So that's a 5-week program where we take in hundreds of people who want to start writing online, probably people just like you. We have conversations like this, very tactical, and Will runs that entire experience. Will, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, David. Hey, everyone. I'm Will. I am course manager for Rite of Passage and Building a Second Brain, which are sort of two complementary courses that at the most broad level teach you how to be a citizen of the internet. And we're in Building a Second Brain right now, another Rite of Passage coming up this summer if anyone's interested. And this course is cool for me because I'm here because of Twitter. Everyone who's on this panel I met because of Twitter. I met David initially because of Twitter, and it's a powerful tool. So excited to be here with all of you.
Awesome. Next is Becca. So Becca is my assistant, and she is going to be taking notes so that all of you have just an amazing series of notes after this. Becca, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Becca. My kind of special thing is that I'm a little bit like Batman in that during the day, I'm a writing nerd and assistant. And then at night, I turn into a classical musician. So for me, I'm so excited because there's so many things that you can do as an artist on Twitter that, I haven't even started to scratch the surface. So I'm very excited secretly to be taking all these notes.
Awesome. And then Anna Fabrega. So Anna was one of my Rite of Passage students, and we started talking about halfway through the cohort. She's really excited about childhood education. She was a teacher for 5 years. And if you've seen some of my recent posts about building out summer camp and a recent manifesto that I published. Will, Becca, if one of you could link to that in the chat, that would be great. Anna and I have been working on a summer camp for 8 to 12-year-olds. Anna, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Anna. Like David said, I'm a former elementary school teacher and Rite of Passage alum. That's how I met David. And now I'm the co-creator of Rite of Passage Summer Camp. David and I realized that we see learning through a different lens, as a more playful and self-motivated and self-directed experience. And we wanted to bring something like this for children. So we created a virtual online space where kids from all over the world join, and they really get a chance to explore their passions and work on projects that they're curious about and experience the energy of live online learning in a very fun and collaborative way. So we have a pilot running next week, and then the official cohort starts in June. We'll throw in the link. We have over 300 students already signed up from around the world, so we would love to have more kids. Nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. So, and then I'm David. So I am way too obsessed with Twitter, and I've been tweeting for like 6 years, just on and off, and just no platform has changed my life more. It's how I met Matthew, and it's how I built my business. It's how I find new ideas. It's made me smarter, happier, more curious. It is just like the platform that I love. And today, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to do a 15-minute presentation. Matthew is encouraged to interrupt as I do the presentation. Matthew, anything that you want to build on my ideas, anything like that, please do so. And then Matthew is going to present, and I'm going to insist on interrupting. So if you don't interrupt me, I'm going to interrupt you. Then we're going to do a Q&A for all of you. So the only thing, my only announcement is all of you can come together in the chat to have a conversation. And then if you have questions for us, we will add those. Please just write in the Q&A, and Will and Anna and Becca will be looking at that. One thing that I'm going to put in the chat, and this is the first time I'm ever announcing this, due to the demand for this course, I actually made an email Twitter course for all of you. So if you go to that link that I just put in the chat, you can open that up, and in the next 6 days, I just put a brain dump of all the best things I've learned about Twitter, and you can go in totally free. And that's just as a thank you for joining us. And I want to get into it. So what I want to do is just share my screen. So I'm going to chat for the next 15 minutes. Matthew, once again, you can add the link, or you can interrupt me at any point. Can all of you see my screen? Okay, cool. So let's see, hopefully, okay, hold on. Let me just share the other screen 1 second. Okay, here we go. And Will and Anna and team, if you could just make sure that that link I just threw in the chat really gets seen, that would be fantastic. It looks like there's some questions. Okay, so here is my advanced workshop on how to use Twitter. And so I'm going to talk about a couple things, but I want to start off with 3 quotes that I think really summarize why Twitter is valuable. First, Bill Gurley, and I'll end the presentation with Bill Gurley in a little. He says that Twitter is the most amazing networking and learning, or Twitter's the most amazing networking and learning network ever built. If you don't know who Bill Gurley is, he's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, works for Benchmark. He's the guy who saw the vision for Uber years ago and led that investment. So one of the big names in venture capital. Next is from Alisson. She says, Twitter is great for writers, investors, and entrepreneurs because when you post your thoughts, you get instant feedback that's more unfiltered than anything you'll get face-to-face. And I always say that Twitter is the writing improvement tool that for all of human history we've never had. I mean, you post your ideas out there, and all of a sudden you're getting feedback on what's resonating, what's not, word choice, sentence structure, all those kinds of things. And then finally, on Twitter, you can build a network solely based on your clarity and quality of thought. And I think that in terms of how all the networks work, this is what's unique about Twitter. Facebook doesn't work like that. Instagram doesn't work like that. Pinterest doesn't work like that. But what I want to do—
I'm going to jump in.
Do it.
I'm stealing it. So, you know what I've noticed? So you follow VC Twitter, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what, and I do too. I would argue that like when I started, I really kind of adopted that formatting, that style, and you can still see it in what I tweet now. Why do you think VCs have, like, they have it down, like they do a good job? And I don't mean this to, like, I think everyone should follow a lot of the VCs. They have these like insightful ways of writing. Like, why is that? What is it about that one demographic that they figured this out?
Oh, I have an answer for you. The
Okay.
answer is that venture capital, you make money by having ideas that other people don't have. And I think that they are trained to think like contrarians. And what works on Twitter is to be just contrarian enough that you give people insight, but not so contrarian that you bother people and that people are like, nope, that doesn't make sense. And I actually think that life-changing ideas work that way. So if we go back to the Bill Gurley Uber, it was just contrarian enough in that, wait, taxi with phone? No. But it wasn't so crazy that it was like, we're going to be going to Mars from our smartphones or something.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. And then Will, if you want to dig up a recent post from Tyler Cowen at Marginal Revolution that answers this exact question, why are venture capitalists so good at Twitter? So
Wait, I swear I didn't see that question. That sounds now like it was planned. You had that ready?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's my guess, and I think a little bit based off of his post for sure. He deserves the assist, alley-oop, slam dunk. I think that writing tweets has 4 things in common. So like, if you're gonna sit back and you're gonna write and you're gonna say, okay, what's my checklist for actually writing these things? The first one is compression. Matt and I were just talking. We're saying, David, what is it that you gave me a nice compliment. And he said, what you're good at is you're good at compressing ideas and packing a lot of information into a very dense amount of space. And like, even an hour ago, I tweeted like 3 scientific studies that I wanted to see. So that's 3 scientific studies in 280 characters. That's like 3 new ideas. And I think that what's great about Twitter is it rewards people who can take a lot of information, put it into a little bit of space. Also, no spam. I don't know what happened, and it must go back to early Twitter, but hashtags, at least more than one hashtag, don't use them. This is very tactical. But the other thing that is a real pain that happens all the time is when certain people who want attention, they'll tag like 8 different people in their tweets. And they're basically saying, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Don't do that. Write quality. You'll notice in my strategies for Twitter, I really want to encourage you to help make people smarter, to be kind, to be generous, and to make the environment that is Twitter better.
So for the spam, before you move on for spam, we would advertise with Twitter. So we had a relationship with them. Like, I would go meet with them once a month or a quarter. I forget how often we did it. Twitter themselves, literally this comes from Twitter's mouth. They say, limit your post to no more than 2 pieces of clickable text. So that means a link, that means a hashtag, that means a mention, and it means a cash tag. Cash tags are how you do stocks. So not only is this you saying it, but it's literally Twitter going like, yeah, too much of this looks spammy, don't do it.
Yep. I mean, I totally agree. So do you have a rule? Didn't you say only 1 hashtag or is it 2?
So the rule that they used was 2. I honestly, I go for 0. Like I shouldn't say 0. Anytime I do it, it better serve a purpose. So right. For example, I recommended people follow you like a week ago, not even. Right. When me and you decided to do this, it was like, well, what a perfect time for that. Obviously, I need to tag you in that post.
Yeah.
Like, it makes complete sense. But there's no hashtag. There's no reason to tag other people. If I have it in there, it's very deliberate. So it's to make the tweet easier to read. Like another good example is I actually broke my own rule. I'm doing a Twitter live with a founder of he's got a lot of kind of viral dog accounts on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tag I wanted to tag the account so that if someone wasn't familiar with him, they could at least see, oh, I know this account. So obviously you can always break your own rule, but you have to know why you're breaking it. You're never gonna, the advice I always give, there's no hashtag you're gonna put in your post that's gonna make it go viral. Like it just isn't. So always go for quality, always go for clarity.
Love it. Love it. Next is simplicity. I think that I would encourage you to pay attention to how you scroll Twitter, right? You really sort of try to get through a lot. And my point is that people don't really read Twitter like they read a book. They browse it. And just put yourself in the state of mind of the consumer, and you want to be doing things that catch people's attention. And you have to, like, the first sentence, one thing that Matthew does really well, which I'm going to get into in a little, is he does a very good job of like catching people and then giving them the context. And I actually have examples that I'm going to show in a couple minutes where I'll actually sort of unbundle and sort of unpack all of these things. And then finally, novelty. I mean, Matthew asked me a couple minutes ago, why are venture capitalists so good at Twitter? And I think it's because of the novelty. They are always spending time trying to look at ways of the world that people don't ordinarily look at, trying to see things that other people don't see, trying to see the secrets hidden in plain sight. And those are the sorts of things. If you can give people something that makes them say, whoa, I've always known that, but I've never put words to that sensation, that works really, really well on Twitter. So I want to talk really quick.
Those are the tweets that get the most retweets when I post.
Really?
Totally agree. If you can tap into something that someone else, like, they feel it in their soul, but they've never actually put pen to paper, like, that's how you get retweets. And retweets, obviously, as you know, are how you get the most impressions.
Yeah. It's also how you buy happiness. I'm just kidding. So I want to talk about curating your feed. So look, when you want to, okay, story. So when I was working at a job, the overwhelming feedback was, I had one job. I lasted 7 months. It's okay. And the overwhelming feedback was like, you're not a good writer. So I was like, well, dear sir, how can I become a better writer? And guess what he said? Read great writers. And like, I'm not kidding. I was a horrible writer growing up, just terrible. And I think that the same thing is true. What do you want to do? If you want to become better at Twitter, read great tweeters. And so I have this little graph that I want to show you about who to follow and who to unfollow on Twitter. So I'm going to focus on the left side of this. So who should you follow? Well, generally you want to follow individuals instead of publications. And then you want to avoid Twitter's recommendations. Look, Twitter's recommendations will lead you to follow CNN. It'll lead you to follow celebrities and politicians. And that's fine. That's a very broadcasting form of Twitter, but it's not very interesting. And you'll sort of end up in a very news-heavy Twitter environment. I strongly encourage you to look for interesting individual accounts to follow, right? People like Matthew, individual people who are tweeting things, have a style that other people don't have. Now, little pro tip for you. How do you find those people? What you do is you find one person that you like. So let me just back up a little. So one of my favorite ways to find book recommendations is to take my favorite books, go to the bibliography, and look at those books. My favorite authors, the books that they like, those are the books I like to read. Likewise, the people I follow on Twitter that I like, I look at and I follow the people who they like. So what you can do is on the top, there's four bars, and you can look at tweets, replies and tweets, I think media, and then likes. Scroll the likes of people who you like following, and you'll find a lot of good accounts. Matthew, anything to add there?
No, I'm learning. That's great advice. I'm going to start doing it.
So who to unfollow? Okay, this is even more important. And look, one of the things that's a little frustrating about Twitter, and that's actually why we're doing this workshop, is it doesn't help you. The platform doesn't help you use it very well. And as you begin to follow people over time, well, guess what? You gotta start trimming down. And at the beginning, you got to build up. But actually, once you begin to build your audience or how many people you follow, this right side, who to unfollow, is much more important. So a couple things. If somebody makes you stressed, if somebody is annoying you, if anything like that, just unfollow them. It's okay. You are curating an environment and you want it to be peaceful and happy and full of learning and interesting and nurturing, right? You want to get the meats and the vegetables. You want things that taste good, that are healthy. And then, well, fresh vegetables. And then what you want to do is you want to just get rid of spammers. There's people who are hopping in and stuff. You can mute them. You can unfollow them. You can block them. I'm giving you full permission to curate your feed and to make it awesome. And I'm encouraging you to be very deliberate and very discerning about who you follow and who you let into your mind. Because when you follow someone on Twitter, you are giving them permission to brainwash you 280 characters at a time with idea after idea after idea. And in the same way that you walk into the supermarket, and if you want to be healthy, you want to avoid the sweets, you want to avoid the Pringles, you want to avoid the Doritos. Exactly. Use that mute button without mercy and make sure that you're getting fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. And if you're going to get ice cream, that's fine, but know that you're getting some ice cream. Okay.
How long were you using Twitter before you started doing that yourself?
It's hard to say. Probably if I were to start now, you know what, let me put it this way. I think this becomes really important once you get to about 400 people that you're following. I think the actual follower count is more important than amount of time.
Yeah. It took me a little bit to get that. This is the secret to unlocking the value of Twitter. This is why Twitter doesn't have as many users as Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, because it takes work to get that feed that makes sense for you. It's like the amount of work to get here. It's, you know, like you go on Instagram, see some pretty pictures and, you know, you're enjoying it. But you know, like maybe you put around this much of work, you get this much value. Twitter, you have to put in this much work, but you get, I'm going to go higher than my screen. You get this much value.
Right.
And so like what you're talking about, not only is it good for your soul and good for who you are, like that's how you get the most benefit of it. And that's what gets you addicted. That's what gets you like, what's news, what's going on right now. So I'm totally in with this. And some people I think do it naturally. I think some people just kind of like intuitively get it. And then some people, they need this screen to be told like, yes, follow quality people, find quality people to follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I want to talk about your Twitter presence. So like, what is a good kind of charisma, right? What is the Twitter charisma? What does that look like, right? We all like people who are charismatic, who we enjoy being around. What does that look like on Twitter? Well, I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, you've got my Tiger King screen.
You want to read it? I know. I swooped in for your old profile.
Do I have to do your thing and then I'll give the feedback of why I have that, by the way.
All right. Well, I just want to read this because I really like it. So Matthew says, I spent a few years working on a PhD to examine how people use social media. Here's what I found in one sentence. People treat social media interactions the same way they treat real life interactions. Helpful people are valued, whereas self-serving people are ignored. You want to talk about that a little?
I'd love to.
If you ask a PhD to talk about what he did his PhD in, the answer will always be yes.
Oh, so caveat, I am a PhD dropout. I quit.
Okay.
I don't have the PhD. Just want to make sure that I'm not pretending to be a doctor that I'm not. My clever line that it probably isn't that clever is I'm smart enough to be a PhD dropout.
There we go.
But what I did though, which was actually very beneficial, it really shaped the way that I look at all communication now. So when you're doing a PhD, you have to come up with a theoretical framework to base your predictions on, to base your study on. And so I got really into evolutionary psychology at the time. Evolutionary psychology, I'll explain it to you in like 15 seconds. Evolutionary biology says we look like we look because at some point it behooved our ancestors. You have thumbs because the people who had thumbs are better able to survive, reproduce. We have 2 eyes, we stand on 2 feet, all that stuff. Evolutionary psychology says we think the way we think, we act the way we act, because at some point it was evolutionarily advantageous for us to think, act that way. Mm-hmm. And so once you understand how we're programmed, how we're designed to interact with people, all then you have to do is add a layer of technology over it, and you can predict how people will interact with it. So there's no reason to think that if you kind of find someone annoying in real life, you're probably going to find them annoying on social media. If you find someone who's really self-promotional in real life, and that you're going to ignore them, you're going to ignore that same behavior on social media. The technology does not change who we are. The technology is just a way for us to further be who we already are. So whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it might be, like you can see how Instagram's this giant popularity contest for being attractive or being creative or being artistic. And Instagram or Twitter is kind of the same way. And the way that you're able to be funny or share knowledge, it all goes down to these basic tenets of who we are as human beings.
Awesome answer. Yeah. So I think that there we go. I mean, this I think is a great pinned tweet as well, because what this tweet does is, I'll talk about this in a little, but your pinned tweet introduces people to it's part of the structure of the way that you set up your account. And if you follow Matthew and you're just coming on, you're saying, who is this guy? You're seeing, okay, this is somebody who is trying to teach other people, somebody who's really interested in social media, somebody who studied this. And that actually does a really good job of framing his profile. And this is very indicative of what he does. But the other thing I want to do is I want to show you the tweet on the right and how I think about this, where I learned this from Matthew. I think that what Matthew does a really good job with is that top sentence. If you look at his tweets, they're a pitch for you to read the rest of the tweet. And so I say, if you want to improve your writing, start taking notes. And I talk about this all the time in Rite of Passage. I mean, this is why we start Rite of Passage with note taking, because note taking, everyone thinks, oh, okay, I'm going to have an idea. I'm going to see a piece of information. I'm going to save it. But it's actually about having conversations with your past and future self. It's almost like a form of time travel, where if you take notes, you remember, oh, I remember where I was when I wrote that, what I was feeling, was my heart beating, was it beautiful outside, anything like that. And then by taking notes, you can actually develop ideas over time. So I have the pitch at the top, the explanation at the bottom, and I'm just trying to get people. And I think what I do is in the next tweet that I'm going to show you right now, I explain what this looks like, right? Every tweet should have one idea. Start with a simple sentence, then explain yourself. When you keep the idea simple, your tweet can be long and people still read it. Just look at yourself. You've now read this entire tweet, which is proof that the one idea strategy works. Simplicity, catch on top. But then also, when you actually frame a tweet, look at this list. I like lists because they're easy to read. For example, I need to purchase meat, mushrooms, and avocados is harder to read than the following list. Grocery store items, meat, mushrooms, avocado. On Twitter, your presentation is as important as your content. Matthew, I know you're going to have something to say here.
No, you know what's funny is I actually wrote a tweet that was similar to your first one. So the way that I look at that first line, it's almost like the subject line of an email. Like, this is my one chance to get your attention to read the full tweet. Because like 280 characters is a long tweet. This is the longest tweet you can possibly have. And so you're competing with tweets that are smaller or that are shorter. You're also competing with tweets that maybe have images in them. So if I can get you to, and I told you I had a test account earlier for if people weren't tuned in earlier. One of the things I do is I try to make that first line literally be a first, like only one line. I try to like condense it as much as possible, just so that it doesn't feel like it's 2 or 3 lines. Obviously there's times where that's not possible. So it just is what it is. But if I can delete one word or, you know, open up my trusty thesaurus and pick a shorter word so that it all fits on that first line, so it looks nice and pretty on your phone and you can see that one line and that entices you to read it, then that's my goal. And I literally did one just like you have here. It was something like, a good way to format your tweets are to have the first line act like a subject line. And then I did the explanation and then I ended it with like, I just proved myself because you read this whole tweet. Right. Which, by the way, is a really good trick to do on Twitter, because anyone who doesn't read it won't know that you put it in there. and like, the only people that'll see it are the people that actually read it. So it's like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to some extent.
Can you talk about your test account? I thought that was really interesting.
So I have a test account for 2 reasons. One is the formatting to me makes a huge difference. So as you see right there on the right with the lists, 100%, having a list like that is a lot easier to read than having it in a sentence. And so what happens is when you have it in a draft, it just doesn't quite look the same as when it's in real life, when it's out in the wild. So I have a test account just to push something out there, just to make sure that there isn't one little word hanging on the last paragraph, you know, the last sentence or something, or the last line. I want to make sure that every word kind of looks right. I do a lot. Here's a way that I write tweets is like, I have the draft and I just publish it just to get an idea on the test account, just to see what it looks like. And then once I see it like in a news feed, I realize, you know what? The interesting part was at the end. I need to take that, move that to the front. Or that like, you know what? I was a little redundant here. I've got this, it's 200 characters, but it only needs to be 150. Let me just cut this part right out. To your point of that first one is conciseness. It's consolidating everything. Don't use 5 words when 2 words will do. And it really goes to everything that you've said. It's people are scrolling through this. You don't know what they're doing. You know, like they've got their phone, but maybe their kid's yelling in the background. Maybe they're on the train. Maybe they're in a meeting. Like, you only have so much time to grab their attention. And so you've got to do everything you can to grab their attention. And writing concisely is one of those ways. And being able to see how it looks from their perspective is why I have a test account. Like, I know exactly what my audience will see when I post this if I do it on the test account first.
Awesome. I'm going to do that. That is such good advice. So just to reiterate, so this first idea that I shared was to help people with ideas, insight, and knowledge. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to contribute to the pool of ideas and knowledge to make this fun, to make it enjoyable. You know, Twitter's got enough hate, enough people angry. I'm trying to add, like Matthew and I, we really try to add inspiration and positivity and just learning into the world. And then right here, present your information in ways that are easy to read. Third is reply to people with, or that's the next one. This is one more. So this is, once again, just showing you exactly what it looks like to present information in ways that's easy to read. And we will send you these slides. You can look at these tweets and you'll see they're just easy to look at. And as a result, they do well. But then one thing that works really well is to reply to people who have big followings and make sure that your replies add a lot of value to the conversation. Matthew goes out yesterday and he says, know the difference between what people want, what people say they want. Sometimes it's the complete opposite. Great insight. Boom. Top of my head. Reminds me of this great quote from David Ogilvy, who started a famous advertising agency called Ogilvy and Mather. And I said, boom, right here. And I guess, Matthew, I don't know if you knew the quote or something like that, but popped right in.
100% stole that quote and repurposed it for my own Twitter.
Really?
They're like, it's not even like, and I don't even mean to say deliberately. Yeah. But I know that quote. Like, my job's to understand advertising and branding and marketing and stuff. So I read stuff like that because I'm interested in it. Right. It's one of those things where, like, you read all these different things and you kind of like let them, dance around in your brain. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, you have this epiphany and you don't realize, like, I probably stole this from someone else and maybe combined, maybe I added my own flavors to it. But clearly that's just a variation of that. I'm a firm believer in that, like, we have no clue what we want. And I think that's just in life. Like, that's not even buying. Like, we're bad at picking our friends, probably. We're bad at picking romantic partners. Right. We're bad at least knowing, like, what we want. We're bad at picking our own meals. We're bad at picking our vacations. Like, if you had someone who understood, it's because we don't have insight to this stuff. So like, it goes back to that human nature thing. And so it's all stuff that I am interested in. But then you have someone like Ogilvy, who writes it so eloquently and writes it so, like, simply that, like, anyone gets it. And so that's where I kind of, like, got this background of human nature. And then I know that, like, I've got that kind of top of mind. You just combine it and there it goes. I'm also, by the way, if I admit that I steal everything, no one can ever accuse me of stealing. So it's a defense mechanism too.
You know what I think about a lot in something like this, because you're talking about eloquence of explanation. And I just think of songwriting all the time, right? Like, how is it that I never listen to pop music ever, but I walk into a bar and I know the words of 70% of the songs? I don't know how that's possible, but that is because songwriters have gotten so good at working with beats and to tap in with the lyrics and to make music that just rings in your mind time and again. And I think that's what a great quote does. I mean, Will is like Mr. Quote, and Will just loves quote. Will, what's your favorite quote?
Live well and broadly, do not dwell in petty detail. Now is the envy of all of the dead.
See, that's what a quote does. That's what a quote does. It just stays in your head. And you say that all the time when we're talking about rite of passage stuff. Now is the envy of the dead, right? Like, now, I won't forget that. And then back to replies, I think that this is what I did. There was a tweet, and you just want to sort of be scrolling and pick new tweets that still, because Twitter is very time weighted, right? So you want to pick a new tweet, do a reply. Look, you can't just reply and add junk. That's not the point. The point is to add value to the feed. You want to be adding something that makes people learn, that enhances the original quote. And if you can do that, people will share with it. And the way that Twitter's algorithm works is it's going to bring your reply with the most engagement right to the top, which is a great way to sort of surf the audiences of others. I'm trying to help those of you who are struggling to grow your followings, this is one of the things, but provide value, provide value. Now I want to talk about 3 people, and I want to show Matthew's, and then I want to show Anna's Twitter bios, because I think these are 3 really good examples. And so I think that, Matthew, you want to talk a little bit about how you think about your bio?
Yeah, 100%. I'll even get into my name too, because you had the Tiger King one, and now I've got a Lululemon one. So a lot of what I do is work with brands. You know, these are companies that are listed at the New York Stock Exchange, so we interact with them a lot. And I think brands are using social media poorly for the most part. Obviously, there's some that get it right. I think there's so much more fun that they could be having in so many more interesting ways that they could be leveraging social media. So I use my own account as just a way to like experiment and play with them. Like I'm not getting paid for any of this. I just take brands that I enjoy, or that maybe I perhaps know the person doing the social media for that brand. And so what you see here was like Lululemon replied to me, and I'm not lying. I'm literally in Lululemon shorts right now. And, but it also felt timely. It felt like it made sense. It's like, what a perfect time to joke about how I haven't changed out of something uncomfy for 27 days. And so that's why I had that. And then when Tiger King was going, I changed my profile so I looked like Joe Exotic. And I said, Matt Kobach, but currently watching Tiger King on Netflix. Again, like that's a great way. Like if you're Netflix, or if you're a company where that makes sense, why not go out to an influencer and say, hey, change your name for for 2 days to whatever it is that we have. Change your profile picture. Change it to us drinking a can of your soda, whatever it might be. Like there's so many fun ways to do this. So that's why I have that. It's really just a way for me to experiment with brands. And it's one of those things too, where you want to add value, you want to be clear, and then also you want to still do stuff for yourself. And so to me, the like stuff with the brand stuff is kind of the stuff for myself, where if people don't necessarily love it, I enjoy doing it. So I'm just going to keep doing it, which is a long way to say now my bio is very, very specific and deliberate. That's not chance. That's not an accident. It tells you everything you need to know if you are new to my profile and you are thinking about following me. So one, it tells you where I work. So it gives me a little credibility that I'm not just some guy in the street talking about social media. I do it professionally. So that's why that's there. And then I have the bio of who I am. It tells you what to expect when you follow me. So I'm going to be talking about creativity. I'm going to be talking about marketing. I'm going to be talking about branding. I'm going to be talking about social media. But I also have that layer of like, I'm going to do it through the lens of philosophy or through life or through self-improvement. So that gives me, which by the way, if you go through any of my tweets, you could probably get rid of the word social media or marketing and just put in life. Like that's really how I look at a lot of this stuff. I find tried and true ways to live your life and just apply it to whatever we're doing today. Like most of the stuff, I'm taking ideas that have lasted 1,000, 2,000 years and just taking it to what we're doing now. Like there's a reason these ideas have lasted so long. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at my account, you're able to see, you get an idea that like, if I get a little philosophical or get a little off topic of social media, it's like, I warned you, you knew this coming into me. You know this about my account. So it's very clear what I will and won't be talking about. You're never going to see me talking about a basketball game or a football game. You're going to see me maybe pontificating on life a little bit, but definitely talking about marketing and social media and, you know, anything that helps drive those to, you know, or improves your skill set in those domains.
Awesome. Anna, do you want to share with us how you thought about just curating your profile? I think that you do a really good job with your top tweet, which, you know, got tons of engagement. Will, if you could put a link to Anna's Twitter account in the chat. I mean, Anna, like the way that we got in touch, part of the reason why I really wanted to work with you, because I was so impressed was with how you were thinking on Twitter. And it was like Twitter. And then we said, you know what, let's make a summer camp for 8 to 12-year-olds. And that's what we're working on together now. You want to talk about your strategy behind this?
Yeah, for sure. Well, David, you and I talk all the time how I'm 28 going on 7. So really that playful personality, and it's pretty much what really bonds me with the kids and with my former students. So the I get kids and kids get me pretty much sums up my personality. And then edupreneur is the term that I coined, rite of passage, as my personal monopoly. So that's pretty relevant there too. And just to finish up, well, I'm a former elementary teacher and my students call me Miss Fab, and that's my logo and my brand. So many people know me as Miss Fab and don't know I'm Anna. So just to kind of like wrap it in there. And yeah, tweeting about what I'm thinking has really just worked well, just bluntly out there and about the topics that I feel like interest me and people are interested in.
Yeah, I think that some of the, and I'm going to sort of ask you to talk about the personal monopoly and like what that means, because that's a word that we use a lot in Rite of Passage, but I want to make sure everyone sort of knows about that. But one of the things that I really like about your account is like you have the dance, right? Like knowing you, like your whole sort of life is sort of in this. And so talk about your pin tweet, talk about the profile picture, and talk about your personal monopoly and what that means to you.
Yeah, so as I was just, I was a teacher, and then I started just to rethink a lot of things that were going on in the classroom and with education. And I started voicing it out and just putting it out exactly how I was going through my head. And then that tweet particularly just resonated with a lot of people and exploded. It was the day of the Super Bowl. So also people were really looking at their phones that day. And it really kind of defines my vision and the things that I'm questioning right now. So I just thought it was relevant to put it up there as my pinned tweet. And then in terms of my picture, and the background, well, it's very colorful and it has a few students that have permission to be in the photo. And it just kind of wraps up like the way my classroom was and just who I am right now. So it's all there. And then for the personal monopoly, that's something that we talk a lot about in Rite of Passage, which are really finding those things that make you unique. And that just, it's who you are in your essence. And I was able to coin it in that edupreneur, which is, I'm a former elementary school teacher, but now starting my business and trying to find something that works for all kids right now. So it's all coined in that term. And David, well, your personal monopoly is also a great example of that. So if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, look, one of the things that I saw, and I wanted Anna to present there because I think that one of the things that I've learned from Matthew and from Anna is it's so clear what they stand for. Matthew, social media; Anna, education, and a particular vision of education that's around projects, that's around fun, that's about not having these top-down curriculums. And you just see that right in both of their pinned tweets. You see the essence of who they are. And so I think that just look at them and start thinking about how you can take these elements for your Twitter account. And what you see for me is what I do is I have the writing guy, right? Where I coined that. And actually Nick Sharma is here, and Nick Sharma is one of the participants. And if you follow Mr. Sharma on Twitter, he's the DTC guy. So I took that from Nick and I said, you know what? I'm going to bring that in here. He's going to be the DTC guy. I'm going to call myself the writing guy. And then what I have for my pinned tweet is just a little thread on books, where every time I go to someone's house, I take a photo of their bookshelf, and it's just sort of very like playful and fun. And I think that it celebrates learning, which is a lot of how I think about this. So I got one more slide and then Matthew's going to go. So the last one is, look, you don't even need to write under your real name. You can write pseudonymously and say that you're working for a big corporation, say that, you know, it's hard for you to write under your real name, whatever. Look, these are three great examples. Tyba, Jesse Livermore, the Stoic Emperor. Look, these people do phenomenally well. And I've met one of them, and this person just does an amazing job of getting inbound, meets all these amazing people, if not more people than I do, because he's pseudonymous and people want to meet this person. There's some mystery in the Twitter email course that Will, if you could put in the chat. So for all of you who joined late, I made a five-part Twitter email course for all of you as a thank you for coming today. That's a total surprise. You're the first people ever to hear about it. And I think it's an email number 2. I refer to this person as the mystery man. So that's my presentation, and I hope that was helpful. And now Matthew's going to start talking, and I'm going to get to interrupt him a little. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Can you guys see my screen or no?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Nope. See here. Ah, there we go.
There we go.
Now you can see it.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So this is actually, so if you didn't know this, we had no idea what we were presenting beforehand. Like it's almost like we were part of a double feature and neither of us knew what the other feature was. And perhaps serendipitously, I think what we have now complements each other really well. Because what you have is like, if you're doing it, if you're creating content, you're tweeting, here's what you should be doing. What mine does is kind of like, is a little bit of a flashback. It's here's what you should be doing before you even start. So before you even think about what you're going to be doing on social media, you need to start with a strategy. And the reason I think you need to start with a strategy is you need to know what you're going to be posting about. You need to know why you're going to be posting. You need to know what your goals are. And if you don't know this stuff, you're not going to know if you're actually successful. So a strategy is something you can adjust. It's something that you can, put out there as a goal to try to hit. Otherwise, you don't necessarily know if you're succeeding or not. And some people can do this intuitively. I was not one of them. So I think if you're someone like me who needs to kind of see it in black and white, maybe you don't need to take notes. Maybe you don't need to like take a course on it, but it's good to kind of just get in there and have it dance around your head a little bit. So I've got 3 things. So, and the strategy doesn't have to be complicated. I've got 3 bullet points here and they're literally fill in the blank. So like if you want to start, and this is for yourself or for a brand, if you're doing it for a company, you can steal this too. But literally it's a fill in the blank of what you should be thinking about before you even start tweeting. So first one, someone should follow me because you should know why. If you want followers, like again, this is only if you want followers. If you don't want followers, do whatever you want. Have fun. Social media is a blast. But if you want followers, you better know why someone should follow you. David, I'm 100% sure, knows why people should follow him. Anna, I'm sure knows why people should follow her. I know why people should follow me. I know why why you should follow certain brands. So you've got to figure that out. And it has to be very, very specific. It's not you follow David because he's a good writer. It's you follow David because he takes complex concepts, writes them in ways that's easily digestible, and then further synthesizes them for Twitter so that you can get a little hit of knowledge in 280 characters at a time. Like you have to be that specific, that granular. Again, if you look at mine, like I already kind of said what mine is, it's, it's philosophy mixed with marketing and social media. And again, some people are good at doing this just intuitively. Some people, it's going to help you to focus what you're doing. It's the reason to do this too is like the biggest problem I see people make is that they're all over the place. They don't know what they're posting. They don't have a consistent tone. They don't know, like they're talking about their lunch, then their gym, and then their job. And like this makes it very clear of what you should be focusing on. And then second is I will only post about X, Y, and Z. Actually, you know what? I want to go back to that first line. The first line might be the hardest thing you do in social media, on Twitter. Figuring out a reason for someone to follow you is insanely difficult. It's going to have to be something that's intrinsic to who you are. It's going to have to be something you're passionate about. If you do not care about Harry Potter, do not start a Twitter account about Harry Potter. You have to love writing. You have to love social media. You have to love whatever it is that you're tweeting about. So make sure that you're doing that if you're a person. And then once you fill in that blank there, you make sure that you're only posting about those few things. It doesn't have to be 3. 3 is an arbitrary number. But for me, it's, I'll use an example. I've got a prop here. I've got a glass of wine. So someone should follow me because I'm going to tweet about white wines in a very specific region of France. Okay? Like that's a reason to follow. You see how specific that is. And then when I know about that, I'm only going to post about that region of France. I'm going to post about those grapes. I'm going to post about what year that those are the best. I don't know a lot about wine, but whatever year the best harvests for that, you all of a sudden now realize what you should be posting about if you want to post about that very specific wine from a very specific region.
Yeah, one thing to add here is for all of you who are like, how do I figure this out? Like someone should follow me because. Well, Anna was talking about this a couple minutes ago. In Rite of Passage, we have something called the personal monopoly. And that's exactly what Matthew was talking about. I just threw a Dropbox link in the chat. I usually save this only for my students. I said you'd get goodies from being here. I'm following up on my words, ladies and gentlemen, following up. If you go through this, it's a 3-page PDF and you can go through it. It will actually help you find that thing. I wrote it up just for my students. If you go through that, you can just kind of take the shortcut to find that.
100%. That's the most important thing you should do. I haven't seen your course or the packet, whatever it is, but I recommend doing it. Like that's how strongly I feel about it, because no one is going to be better at being you than you. And so if you can't figure out who that is or what you should be talking about, you're never really going to be that great on social media. Like there's never going to be a better David than David. There's never going to be a better Matt than Matt. Like that's the whole point. So fully agree. Full stop. Do whatever you have to do to figure out the answer to that, to fill in that first blank. And then the last one is, what are my regular content segments to convey my key messages? So let's do it for me. I'll use myself as an example. I know that I talk about Twitter, but I also talk about Instagram and, stories and Snapchat and all this stuff. So maybe it means that like one segment for me that's worked really well is I say, here's a Twitter cheat sheet. It could be fill in the blank. Here's a cheat sheet in one tweet. And so I fill it in like, here's a cheat sheet for posting photos on Instagram, and it's contained in one tweet. Once you get a segment like that or a format like that, that's what you can repeat over and over and over and over again. You just plug in different stuff. It could be a video. It could be a style of writing. Once you figure out the kind of format or segments that work, then it becomes a lot easier to fill in the blank. Like you've got half the work done just by coming up with a good kind of hook or a good way to write something. So now we get into the part of the presentation where I think it's all circles. I think I'm only showing circles right now. And so this is exactly what you're supposed to be looking at. What you see right here is everything that makes you you. Everything that you're interested in, everything that you care about, everything that you might think that you want to tweet about. That little white circle in the middle, that's what you actually should be tweeting about. If you want to be successful on social media, you have to be unbelievably specific. You have to be unbelievably niche. You can't talk about wine. You can't talk about white wine. You can't talk about white wine from France. You have to talk about white wine from France in this small little city that no one's ever heard of. That's how you start. You cannot reverse it. You have to start small, and what you have to hope is that, I think I have an arrow, yeah. Just in case it was too small. But you have to start so small that you get a small amount of people who are really, really passionate about what you're talking about. And then once you get them passionate, you can expand it a little. So now maybe you can talk about wines from France. And hopefully these people come along this journey with you. But you're not going to get it. If you talk about something too broad right out of the gate, you're not going to have a compelling enough reason to follow you. And so you have to hope, and this is after like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months that you start expanding that circle and start getting more broad. And if you're lucky, after a few years, you can maybe talk about all wines, but you literally have to start here. Do not start the other way around, because you're not going to get the critical mass of followers who are going to be your biggest proponents. If you do this, if you have this one tiny little dot, that's how you get people that are super passionate about you. They're going to say, go follow this person. I never knew I knew so much about like wine from this region, totally worth the follow. And then since you've gained so much credibility, that's when you get to talk about wine from other regions. And then when you talk about wine from that region, you get to talk about it in any region.
Absolutely. I just want to hop in here real quick. I love the dots. You start with a small dot, then you go up and you get bigger and bigger. And that's just what you focus on. And I think like, if you were to take a company like, take Airbnb, right? Like Airbnb starts off with renting homes and houses. Then they work their way up to experiences. Now they got homes and houses, they have experiences. Then maybe they work up, and at the end, they want to own all of global travel, right? Same thing with Uber. They start off in San Francisco, California. We're going to do call on your app taxi service, small. Then we go up. Then we're going to expand through America. We're going to stay with the same thing. Then we're going to go up to Uber Eats. We're going to keep going bigger and bigger. And then maybe, you know, there's been talks years ago when they were really growing, maybe they take global logistics, something like that. Amazon from books, then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now Amazon's everywhere, right? They have Amazon Web Services. They have all these different, they own Whole Foods, all these things. Start with that small dot and go bigger. That's such a good model. Such a good image, man.
You start by selling books. That's it. You sell books and now all of a sudden you own Whole Foods. You couldn't start by owning Whole Foods.
Exactly.
So, okay. So first lesson, niche, be as specific as you can. And just so you know, I had some people I tweeted something about this and someone from a gaming community asked me and they're like, oh, what, you know, like I like this one game and this game has like 20 million users. Like that ain't specific enough. You have to get unbelievably specific because the nice part is the more specific you get, the more unique you are and the more you separate yourselves from everyone else. If I'm going to talk, I keep saying, I've never even read or watched Harry Potter, so I probably shouldn't use it as an example. But if you're just a general fan account of Harry Potter, you probably don't separate yourself enough. But if you focus on one specific character, or maybe one specific theme from the movie or the books, that's how you stand out. You have to have a unique perspective that is so specific that no one else has done it before. So first lesson, specific, niche, small. Next one is, so once you determine that, okay, once you figure out like what's my catch, what's my hook, what's my unique perspective, the next thing you need to do is you need to post. Like, so what this one circle now represents, this is a one post. You need to post a lot. You need to post over and over and over. So I recommend is like, once you come up with that, like, why should someone follow me? What should I be posting about? The next step is you need to then post every day for 30 days. Now that's those are both arbitrary. Maybe it's every other day, maybe it's for 2 months, but every day for 30 days seems like a nice number. And then what you do is after that 30 days, you go look back at what you posted and you see what was successful. You see what resonated and you're able to tell, all right, you know, that one I posted on the 2nd was good, the one on the 5th, the one on whatever other those dates are. And then you're also able to look, what ones didn't resonate? What ones did my audience not care about? What ones did I miss the mark? And then you're able to reflect, what about the ones with the green circles worked? What about the ones with the red circles didn't work? Maybe the ones with the green circles where this formatting really worked well, so I can use that for other stuff. Maybe it was this topic worked really well. Maybe a red one was, you know what, I had the wording wrong and that's why it floundered. Maybe it's, you know what, I got a little too far out of my niche and my audience told me that they don't care about this. But you only know this by looking back. So literally post every day and then look back at what was successful and what wasn't. And again, I think this is something that a lot of people who have successful Twitter accounts do intuitively. You know, you get a nice warm feeling when you get a bunch of retweets. And so you probably try to intuitively recreate that magic. But this is much more prescriptive. It's literally look at what it was. This cheat sheet tweet format that I have usually gets 1,000 likes no matter what I do. 100,000 people will see it. It doesn't matter. It's because I was able to tap into that format that I was able to do because I looked back at this. It's like, this really worked. What was it? And it was because I compressed a lot of information into a single tweet. I used a catchy word like a cheat sheet. So it makes people realize like, oh, there's going to be like, this is like how I can cheat and get really good at Twitter. You have to do stuff like that. And then once you've done this for a month, you do it again. And you look back and you realize I've now got a little more green circles than I had red circles or red X's. And you do it another month. And again, like this is how you learn and get better. And maybe this isn't 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 18 months. It's, you know, like I'm kind of making up the dates here, but you have to look back at what worked and what didn't work and take the elements of your posts that worked and use them going forward and completely ditch the stuff that doesn't work. If you want followers, they tell you what they want to see from you, not the other way around.
I love it.
Also, I'm using, I very purposely use wine as a metaphor, so I had an excuse to drink wine.
I got nothing to add. That's so good. I mean, I really think of tweeting as like a call and response art form, basically, where you come up with the original idea, you're putting signals out into the world, you're listening to what's resonating, what's not, they're then making you better, and you're in sort of this dance, this tango between you and your audience, doing more of what your audience wants, but then also pulling them in kind of interesting directions and always kind of staying in flux to keep things interesting for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing I want to make sure is that I'm not saying like, don't be true to who you are, post stuff that you don't want to post. Definitely don't do that. But what you need to do is like, your audience tells you how to format a tweet. Your audience tells you the wording to use. Your audience tells you that if the topic you picked isn't quite, right for your brand, like you can make small adjustments. But like maybe your audience hates videos. Maybe your audience hates a video that doesn't start with anything interesting for 5 seconds. Like that's the stuff that that your audience tells you. You can't tell them. All right, more circles, because why not? So the last point I want to make. So we've got be super, super niche. And then you've got to post regularly and then check out, revisit what you post to figure out why it works. And the other part I want to talk about is there's a compound effect here, okay? And the metaphor I'm going to give is if I gave David $100, he wouldn't call himself rich. But if I gave him $100 and then I gave him another 100, another 100, another 100, another 100, at some point, David's going to go, I'm rich. And that's how social media posting works. So you have a single post on its own, it's not really going to move the needle. $100 isn't going to change anyone's life. But when you do it time and time and time and time and time and time again, that's how all of a sudden you come to this point where now every individual post added together makes up this huge thing that never, and it's, the sum is greater than the parts. And so you have to post prodigiously. You have to post over and over and over and over again. And the reason David's getting a lot of likes on his tweets is because of the goodwill he has from the other tweets. The same reason I get a lot of likes on a tweets is because I have spent 11 months pushing out content that resonates. And you get a little bit of that glow every next tweet. I am willing to bet that you could take someone who doesn't have the same audience that I do, take the exact same content, have someone else post it with a similar following, but maybe they don't have that same goodwill. They're not going to get the same amount of retweets. They're not going to get the same amount of likes. If I post, and I'm willing to bet if you even did it for me and David, if you we probably have a lot of overlap, so maybe not the best, but if I take something that's your style, that's who you are, I'm probably not going to get as many likes or retweets as you are, because you have taken the time to build that expectation in your audience so that they're more likely to retweet it and to like it when you say it as opposed to me. And that's the power of having all this stuff combined. It's not one post. It's the combination of all the posts together.
One thing is, should we be worried about like only evaluating likes as the measure of a good tweet? Like, is there such thing as a good tweet that doesn't get a lot of likes? Or should we just be saying likes and replies are so positively correlated with something that works that we should be pursuing that? At what point is just blatantly pursuing likes? When does that become not a good strategy?
So you have to balance it. You can't chase a like for the sake of like. It's almost one of those things like, in your heart. You have to, the reason you need likes, retweets, comments, all that stuff is because that's what gets impressions. And your goal is to make yourself a lighthouse for like-minded people. You want to be the guiding light so that they come towards you, or that you can have these conversations. And you can't meet these people. You can't get followers. You can't have people attracted to you if they don't ever see your stuff. So you have to figure out a way to post the stuff that is true to who you are, but in a way that resonates with other people. So it can be formatting, it can be a video, it can be a summary. There's plenty of ways to do it. But I come to this from an advertising standpoint. Like that's where my background is. That's what I'm thinking of. And to me, if no one's seeing your ads, there's no point in advertising. And there are certain things I do that's just for me, where if it doesn't really work, I don't really care. But there's other things that I'm trying to be helpful. And if it doesn't resonate, I go, you know what, I think I worded that wrong. Or maybe that my audience doesn't care about this. So I think we're not beholden to them, but we kind of have two masters, and one is the impressions and the engagement and stuff. And the other one is yourself. Is this who I want to be perceived at? And the accounts that are the best marry those two. It's something that you do wonderfully. It's something that basically every account you threw up as examples, they're able to marry that. They're able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think, there's a lot of people, I would just encourage all of you to look at accounts that are niche and that are different, that are very true to themselves. And Will, if you could put my tweet that I sent out about 6 hours ago with Wrath of Non plugged in, I linked to this. It's a thread on 13th century urbanism. And it's by this guy. He goes by the name of Wrath of Non, an anonymous account. He lives in Japan. I've exchanged some direct messages with him, some conversations. And what I think he does really well is he has that small circle. He tweets things that other people don't tweet and comes out with this thread on the history of urbanism. And I think that it's a great example of somebody who is getting validation from the number of likes. Once again, that isn't to say that likes is the only metric that matters. That's not the point here. That's not what Matthew and I are saying. But what we are saying is that if you tweet for 4 years and you want to grow an account and you are tweeting, and you're never getting any likes and you're frustrated, then you might want to switch your strategy. If you're on Twitter and you don't care about building your audience, that's fine. Then what we're saying doesn't apply to you. That's much more like a diary. What we're trying to say, like the secret superpower that Matthew and I are trying to give you, and I kid you not, what Twitter will let you do is Matthew can reach out to almost anybody in the finance industry and get a reply within 12 hours if they're on Twitter. Do you know how insane that is? His PhD couldn't have given him that. No undergrad degree couldn't have given that. Maybe even his job can't even give him that. It is the combination, if his job does give it to him, it's the combination of both of those things. It is the ability to use the internet to shrink the world so that you can reach out to people who you'd never be able to reach and meet in real life. And just like what Matthew so eloquently said, to become a lighthouse for like-minded people. That's what we're saying. That's what we're trying to give you the tools to do. You might have this loud, screaming voice inside of you. You feel like you're not being heard. You feel like you have hopes and you have these dreams and you're stuck in some fundamental way. And we're trying to help you use the internet to unlock a flood of opportunity.
I think this is a good time for my final slide. So it really is simple. Like, honestly, do what those 3 things. Do what David said. The catch, and obviously you guys all see the asterisk here. It's not easy. It is hard. It is a lot of work. It is like, David and I were talking before this, like, this is a hobby of mine. Like, this is what I do before I go to bed. This is what I do when, like after work. Like, this is what when I read a book, when I read something interesting, I can't help but think that would be a good idea to apply to social media that I can tweet later. My drafts, let me see. I don't even think this will open. My drafts on my phone of tweets is unbelievably long. And this doesn't even, you probably can't even see this.
Put it closer. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there we go.
This is just, I also have a similar thing. My Twitter drafts don't even because there's so many. It takes like 30 seconds to open. Now, the caveat I will say, like, there's a reason I haven't tweeted all those. I'm sure half of them are just complete garbage.
How many tweets do you write a day?
What's that?
How many tweets do you write a day in that? And then what determines when you actually send one?
So that, you know what it is? It ends up being, because it's a little bit of creativity. And I find creativity comes in waves. So there's times where I could write 20 tweets that I'll put in a draft. And then there's days where, like, I kind of got nothing. And for the days where I have nothing, I go to my drafts and I take out one and I post it. Like what I do is I post minimum twice a day. The pledge I made to myself a year ago is I was going to post once a day minimum about social media marketing or creativity. And I ended up like just kind of having so much content that I was like, all right, I'll do twice. And it's literally like, I've written them before. I tweet one at like 8 and then another one at 6, give or take. It's not scheduled or anything. And then at any time that something interesting kind of pops into my mind, I might just, throw it out there. But it comes in waves. Like, so if you, like, one of my favorite things to talk about is creativity. If you have, and like kind of willpower, it's very similar. If you have a moment where you're kind of like on the wave of something, like, do everything you can to ride that wave as long as you can. Like I'll even use it as like a workout. Let's say that like, you know, like we've all had shit workouts. We've all had times where you go to the gym and you're kind of like just going through it and it wasn't your day. That's fine. But you also have days where you're just killing it. You're feeling amazing. You're like, I could run another 5 miles. Run those other 5 miles. Like you're not stealing from your future self if you run that extra 5 miles. I'm not stealing from my future self. I'm feeling inspired to write 20 tweets that I sit down and write them all. If anything, like you lose it. Once the wave is gone, it's crested, it's over. So take advantage when you have those brief moments of your life to, you know, to really capitalize on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, I know that you love the go for it window. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is David's idea. Originally wrote an essay on it. Somebody can put that in the chat. But the idea is that the world is changing very quickly. One way to think about it is that we live in the age of abundance, information abundance, and that's only been true for the last 10 or 15 years. So that means there's all these opportunities that exist in the world, but the conventional wisdom takes a long time to catch up with those opportunities. So before conventional wisdom and institutions catch up with the way the world is, there's this gap, right? Where the world is one way, but conventional wisdom is another way. And that gap is the go for it window, which is, you know, if you use Twitter in a certain way, or if you publish writing online or create YouTube videos or podcasts, you can create tremendous leverage for yourself. And it might seem like a lot of people are doing that, but 99% of people are just consuming, right? More people than ever consume information and not many people are creating. So being a creator on Twitter, in a blog, on YouTube is jumping through that go for it window, which won't be open forever. So now's the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Anna just published the link in the chat, and this idea came out of, there's a documentary called The Defiant Ones. And it's about the story of Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, who co-founded Beats by Dre, the headphone company that sold Apple for, I think, $3.2 billion. And they have this scene in the documentary, and it is when Eminem, the rapper, in like 1997, he meets Dr. Dre, and they meet at the headquarters of Interscope Records, and they meet, and Dr. Dre is just like, who is this guy? I am so impressed. And Eminem is in this like banana yellow jumpsuit. And so Dre goes, you know what? You're special. Just like what Matthew said, this is the wave. We got to go ride it. So Dre goes to Eminem and he's like, my place tonight, my studio, we are recording. So then, and they have the footage of this in the documentary. And what they do is they come in and they go into Dre's house. 2 minutes in, they start playing some of the beats, and it goes 2 minutes in. Eminem, in go for it window fashion, Eminem drops the lyrics to My Name Is, which 3 years later ended up winning a Grammy. And I think that the point here is that sometimes in life, look, inspiration is perishable, and sometimes in life, when you have inspiration, when you have energy, when the moment strikes, you run to your computer, you write down that tweet, or you make that song, because there's certain moments in life that are special, and you got to create right away, and you got to ride that wave.
100%. And it's in it's creative. It's no matter what you do, it's work. It's, you know, like it doesn't have to be just music, you know, it's anything that you do.
Yep. Will, what are some of the questions in the chat? We'll stay on till about the bottom of the hour.
Absolutely. We've got a bunch. So I've had a bunch saved from earlier. I'm going to start with this one. How do you get over perfectionist paralysis in your tweeting and your writing? That kind of voice in your head say, this isn't perfect, I need to wait before sending it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think that one of the things, by the way, that's a great question, and something that a lot of my rite of passage students have. This is one of the biggest things that we struggle with as a group. And look, this is why I say publish all the time. This is why I write a newsletter every Monday, why I write a newsletter every Friday, why I try to send at least 5 tweets a day. Like, I want to be publishing so consistently that it doesn't even happen. Now, I know that for many of you, when you go out, you feel seen and you feel heard. And I spend my life doing this. As a writing teacher, I know you guys have 2 worries. You have 2 worries, both that you're going to post and everyone's going to judge you. Everyone's going to start looking at you. Who is this David guy writing here? But at the same time, you simultaneously think that even though everyone's going to judge you, you're pissed off that no one's hearing you. How those two things can be true, I have no idea, but that's how we feel. Okay, so I've had this conversation before. And look, this is what I got to say. You got to start slow. And when I say start slow, I mean start publishing now. And you know what? If you want to write under a pseudonym for a little while, do it. Go for it. And start writing under a name that nobody knows. One of my friends, and Will, if you could put the link in the chat, his name is Nick Majuli. He wrote under a name called Of Dollars and Data for the first 5 months. He's now one of the biggest financial bloggers in the world. He used to have the #1 finance blog on Medium. But for 5 months, no one knew who he was. Hey, that's why I presented the pseudonym. If you are scared about perfectionism, go write in public under a pseudonym. But you know what I think of all the time? I think of a house, right? Like I'm at my house now, and never is this house cleaner than right before Thanksgiving dinner. People are coming over. We want the house to be clean. We clean everything up. And it's the same thing online. When we know that other people are going to step into our mind, we clean up our thinking. We make the bed. We tidy up the sheets. We wash the dishes. Same thing in our brains. And that is why I created Rite of Passage, because I think it is so important if you want to improve your thinking to go write in public.
For both of you guys, do you ever schedule tweets, or is it just off the cuff as it comes?
Matthew, go for it, because I know you're going to chat about the last question too.
Yeah, I don't personally schedule them. Like you heard what I said earlier. So it's kind of like I have them pre-written, but I don't schedule them. And that mostly that comes from a branding background. So you never want to have something scheduled and then all of a sudden like a pandemic happens and you look really tone deaf. So that's really why. And then also too, like if you look at what I did, like just me personally, what I posted after like things started getting shut down and all of a sudden realized that like this is super serious and you know like it's worse than we thought. I changed personally what I posted just to acknowledge what was going on. And so that's why I don't really schedule stuff. I have drafts, I have, you know, things I can look at and see what's timely or what's kind of tickling my fancy at any given point, but I don't schedule stuff.
Perfect. Real simple question. A lot of people asking variations of this. How many tweets a day is too much versus too little?
I don't really have an answer. Like the nice thing about Twitter is like, it's hard to do too much. Like it doesn't cost a lot to do a tweet, you know, like every other social media platform has, it's like a higher bar to entry. Like you're not going to post 10 times on Instagram in a day, but on Twitter, that doesn't feel like too much, especially if you're replying. Like I'm just assuming you're talking about kind of like native tweets in your timeline, not even replies. I would start with I don't have a number. Like me, my number's like once or twice a day minimum. Like that's all I try to do. Anything over that is a bonus. But you know, like if you're a breaking news person, you're going to probably want to shoot for like 10 or 20. So it really just depends on who you are, what you want to do. I have yet to see too many. It's like, as long as they're all high value, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthew. So Eric asked this question this way. Do you have any tips to use Twitter without it using us? Or somebody else asked, how do you maximize the value of Twitter and still get stuff done all day, right? How do you not get too sucked in to the dopamine hits of Twitter?
That's a great question. I'll take this one. You know, one of the things is if you're close to your phone, you'll think of Twitter. But if your phone isn't anywhere close to you, I literally won't even think about it. When I write, because writing requires such focused time, and I try to write for an hour every day, or at least an hour, try to do 90 minutes. And I just won't have my phone right next to me like I have it now. I'll just try to put it in the other room or something like that. And then I don't really get distracted. But if I have my phone next to me, I'll totally be distracted all the time. And so that's really what it is. I have a Kindle. So when I read books, I don't have access to my Twitter, and I just need to be in a state of mind where it's not easy to access. You know, one of the things, they've done some studies, and if you are more than, I think it's like 7 seconds away from whatever your distraction is, you see a precipitous drop off in whatever that distraction is. And so you could almost just call it the 7-second rule. Okay. So if you see, like when you get distracted on the internet, this is what happens. You're working on something and you get frustrated for like half a second, right? Like literally you're like, oh, I'm stuck. Half a second. It takes that long, less. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna open Twitter. And then you're just on Twitter. And then Twitter just like, whoop, here we go. Okay, we're gonna go down the river of Twitter. And then it's like 30 minutes later, you're like, I just watched these videos. I got nothing done. And so my encouragement to you is 7 seconds. 7 seconds. Make your distraction 7 seconds away. And if you can do that, you will be so much less distracted in terms of Twitter, and you can use this tool instead of letting it use you.
Another question people are asking, if you're starting from scratch, either completely zero or, less than 100 followers, what advice do you have? And Walter asked this in an interesting way. He said, if you guys were going to start over on Twitter today, what's something you do differently? So maybe just talk about starting from scratch.
If I was starting from scratch, I would figure out, again, like, am I just using it for fun? Then who cares? Like I wouldn't worry about what I post. I would do everything that David said in his presentation about finding the right people to follow and then replying to those people. For me, and maybe this sounds disingenuous, but I swear it's true, is I care less about the total number of followers I have, and I care a lot more about the cool freaking people I've met because of it. Mm-hmm. Like I'm here doing this presentation right now with you fine people because of Twitter. Like that's much more interesting than 1,000 followers that I'll never interact with. One thing that I've done since this pandemic, since we're all locked indoors, I used to make it a point to meet someone from Twitter for drinks for like 2 or 3 hours once every few weeks. Obviously can't do that anymore. It was literally like the criteria was you're interesting, let's go meet. And it was that simple. And so now I moved it to doing Instagram Live where like I'll just reach out to people that are doing interesting things. And I say, hey, do you want to have a drink over Instagram for an hour? And I'll just, we'll shoot the shit and I'll just ask you stuff. And it's much more conversational. So I think you have to approach it that way. Like if you're trying to build a following, it's a little different. Try to start it by like, how can this add value? How can I meet people that are interesting? How can I meet people that I want to talk to and surround myself with?
Yeah, totally. I mean, just look at your moderators here. So Will, who runs Student Experience, Will and I met online. Will found me on Twitter and then subscribed to my email list. I happen to be in LA. Will, what restaurant do we go to? What's it called?
The Venezueler. I stand by it.
Venezueler, just in LA. We got dinner. Will picked the loudest bar, and we, for like, Will, let's have an intellectual conversation. Okay, let's go to a beach bar that's like kind of trashy.
Excellent place.
Just meeting strangers online. So I meet strangers a lot online.
Exactly.
The only rule is make it so it's a bar where it's not too loud that you can't talk. That's the only rule.
Will learned his lesson. And then Anna, what happened? Fernando, your husband, said what? You should follow. What happened?
Yeah. He had been following you for a while and he's like, you need to start following this guy. And I'm like, I don't use Twitter. I had probably like less than 100, followers at that point. And as I started following you, like your content, and then that led me to your course. And then I took Rite of Passage. And then, the rest is history. We're really good friends at this point, but it was all through Twitter. And every time I ask you, how did you meet this person? Your answer is almost always through Twitter. It's incredible.
Yep, absolutely. And now Anna and I are working on summer camp, right? Like even people here in the chat, Lev Naginsky. Lev, put a link to your Twitter. Lev, I stayed on Lev's couch in Chicago like 6 years ago, and he was like my very first Twitter friend ever. Nick Sharma's in here. Nick reached out to me through Twitter direct messages. Nick's one of my best friends. Nick and I have collaborated on more things than anybody else. Nick, link to our podcast, link to our articles, all that stuff. Like Twitter is where this happens. And, I saw some questions about direct messages. And I talk about this in that email course that I linked to before. and just go to ageofleverage.com/Twitter. And what I talked about, there's a whole series devoted to direct messages. And direct messages are like the dark matter of Twitter, right? Like if we, in physics, right? When physicists look at the structure of the universe, they're like, well, 85% of the matter or something, well, we know something is there due to like the way that things are floating and like the gravity, the way that the world is sort of interacting. I'm so far beyond my pay grade. I've like tried to explain this, doing a horrible job. But okay, all I'm saying, there's something that exists that we don't know what it is. That's it. And it's there, but we can't measure it. Okay. Cut me a break. And so
you know what else too? There's something about Twitter DMs that feels like an authentic conversation.
Totally. And so what Twitter DMs is like in the value of Twitter, DMs is the dark matter. It's the thing that we don't see in the universe of Twitter. The thing that when you're just scrolling your feed, you're like, okay, this is how valuable Twitter is. Direct messages and the conversations that are happening there, that's what makes Twitter valuable. That's what makes up 85% of the Twitter universe. And I encourage you to use direct messages to make opportunities happen for yourself.
One thing before we get to the next question, someone kept mentioning Ashaval. Have you had the fried bologna sandwich at Ashaval?
I have it.
Oh, go back there. In Chicago, there's one in New York.
Yeah.
The burger's amazing too. One, go eat there. Fried bologna, assuming you eat.
Really?
Oh.
I think we have the pork belly, which is very
It's a great restaurant. I'm a big fan. Anyway, sorry, go on. Next question. I just can't help but talk about food.
Yeah, so a bunch of questions about Twitter compared to other social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook specifically. Can you guys talk about the difference? And, you know, David, you always mention, you know, you think your Twitter feed is more valuable than your college degree. So maybe weave that in the answer. Like, what makes Twitter so uniquely valuable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what makes Twitter so valuable is in any field, and I'm paraphrasing Bill Gurley, who I mentioned earlier, 50 to 80% of the top people in any field are on Twitter, right? Like if you go into the world of finance, the best investors, at least most of them, have Twitter accounts. If you know who they are and they're on like Chamath Palihapitiya, Bill Ackman, fine. They're right there. But I'm telling you, people like Peter Thiel, people, Mark Andreessen, he's on Twitter every day. They're all on Twitter. They're all looking at it. Just because you don't see them, they got pseudonymous accounts, fake accounts. Everybody who loves information is on Twitter. And what's great about Twitter is it's easier to meet people on Twitter by sending them a direct message than it is by sending people a cold email. Because guess what? When someone direct messages you, what do? You sit back, oh, this looks interesting. And you go, okay, let me go check out their profile. And if you, when I look at Matthew and I like the first 6 tweets on his profile, I'm like, he's a funny guy. He's cool. He's teaching me something. Why not? Let's meet up. Let's do a workshop like this. That's what makes Twitter so great. You can easily jump, get right into somebody's inbox, which is like getting into their text messages. And unlike any other platform, you can learn about them right away and you get rewarded for thinking well. On Instagram, it's a popularity contest. You're just trying to look good. On Twitter, you get rewarded for having good ideas and being a strong communicator.
To echo what you said, one, someone talked about more food in Chicago. Yes, that is a really good pizza. I can't help but look at the comments. But to what you're saying, it's the reason Twitter works the way it does is it's text-based as opposed to image-based. So like by definition, by how it was designed, whether purposely or by chance, it's a better platform for sharing ideas. And so ideas are what connect us. Aesthetics is what Instagram is, and that's almost something to aspire to. So it's slightly different. LinkedIn ends up being a little too professional. So you kind of have like the way that the analogy I like to give is if you ever go to a conference and you meet someone and they give you their business card, that's what LinkedIn is. Twitter is that same conference, but now you're at the bar and you run into someone who was at the conference and you talk to them for an hour and you find out what you have in common, you learn about their kids a little bit, and now you realize that you have an actual relationship with this person. LinkedIn does not facilitate relationship building. Twitter facilitates relationship building, and that's why it's so powerful.
Damn, that's a good answer.
I'm like taking notes on that answer for Rite of Passage. So can you guys just quickly maybe talk about hashtags again? I know you talked about it earlier, but a few more questions about hashtags, just what you're thinking on hashtags in general.
Yeah. You don't need them. No tweet has ever gone viral because of a hashtag.
Perfect.
Easy enough.
Can you talk about sharing your own writing or your own articles? Some people had concerns about being too self-promotional. Is it a balance? Like, how do you share your own stuff on Twitter? And what are some kind of rules of thumb for that?
Yeah, here I got you. So look, I did 2 times in the last 24 hours. Go to my profile and check them out. And Will, if you could drop the links in the chats, go look at how I promoted this thing, right? I said today, I mean, I was sitting here, right? We had more than 2,000 people registered for this, okay? And I was sitting here and I was like, okay, my bed is about 30 feet that way. So I was like, okay, I got 2,000 people registered. I get to talk to one of the biggest audiences I've ever spoken to, and I don't even need to leave my house, right? I could just order Uber Eats right now and get food. I was making my tea and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I started with an observation. And then I said, by the way, if you want to join this workshop that I'm hosting with Matthew, come join us in the next tweet. Same thing today. Maybe it was yesterday, I had a tweet about sentences. One simple way to improve your writing, more periods, less commas. Blew up. Right under, I said, hey, you can, if you're interested, subscribe to my email series, 9-part, 9-day email series where I'll just talk about writing. And so what I did was I did it in the link below. But I'll tell you, when I share my articles on Twitter, they don't get a lot of reach. And now, with that said, what you want to do if you do share articles is you want to create mystery and curiosity. What you want to do is you don't want to share the article by telling all of the answers. You don't want to even do a summary. What you want to do is you want to, in your tweet above the link, make somebody who's reading it say, oh my goodness, I have to read that. And you got to spark their curiosity. You got to make them say, whoa, my knowledge of the world is incomplete unless I read this thing.
Yeah. Billy, our marketing coach, calls that the curiosity gap that you create, right? That gap for people to then follow and see what your article's all about. Interesting question. How much do you guys factor engaging and responding to other people's tweets as credit for your audience growth, as opposed to just your own original stuff?
You know what it probably does? So I just do it. I like doing it. So it was never like a like deliberate thing I did. Like, I just can't imagine someone taking the time to message me and not messaging them back. So early on, it was just like, oh, how exciting. Like, someone took the time to reply to me or to DM me. Of course I'm going to reply. And now it's just something I've continued to do. What I would assume what it did is it takes someone who might be like kind of interested in what you have to say. You could even apply this to a brand. Someone who's kind of interested in a brand, and you're now able to like push them from in the middle to like over here, assuming, I don't think I'm a mirror, but push them like further to the right. Like, they like you that much more. And so that would be my guess. Like, you take someone who's like medium likes your brand, and now they like very like your brand. That would be my guess.
Perfect. Got some questions just about how you guys think about what you consume on Twitter. Do you organize stuff in any lists, or you just sort of follow whoever you find interesting? Any thoughts on that?
Very simple for me. I just I consume in 2 primary ways. So I have my just main feed, and I'll just trust the algorithmic curation. But if I don't like what I'm seeing, I spoke about this about an hour ago, I unfollow those people right away. And if somebody is really hurting my experience, I get rid of them. I block them really fast. I want Twitter to just be a really magical place, and I want it to be happy. And it's not a place where I want to deal with heavy debate, because it doesn't go well. The platform isn't designed for that. So that's what I do with the main feed. And then what I just love doing, if I'm going to spend some time on Twitter, is I go check out one of my favorite followers, or one of my favorite people to follow, and I'll just scroll down their lists. And if you find somebody who has really good taste and you look at all their likes and you scroll all their likes, you'll find some amazing ideas. one more little trick for you. If you really want to have some fun, what you can do is you can take your favorite person to follow, go into advanced search, type in their handle, type in all of their top tweets ever by how many likes they have or by how many replies. So then I could have, like right before this, I found a list, and Will, if you could throw this in the chat, of all the tweets that Matthew and I have ever sent that mention Twitter or audience building that also got more than 200 likes, all in a single list. And if you do that, then you can have a curated feed of all the best things they've ever done.
Twitter advanced search is like a secret Twitter weapon that no one knows.
Yep.
For sure.
Got a question about profile pictures. This is interesting because you guys have different approaches here. Any suggestions for your picture? Like, what are your thoughts choosing your picture for Twitter?
Yeah, Matthew.
What makes your picture?
Look, for me, actually, Nick Sharma took it, who's here right now, and we were commuting back from something, and we snapped the photo, and I like it because it's a big photo, and so it takes up a lot of the screen. It's high resolution, so you can clear me, or you can clearly see me, and it's just bright and it's clear. That's it. You know, I think the worst photos are the ones where people still have the egg. You know, it's some Twitter profile picture that shows that somebody put in no work. Some profile picture, I had a friend who used to have a photo of his dog, and of course everyone just thought he was a troll. If you can just add your real photo and it's a high quality, well lit photo where your face is big, I'm telling you, people will take you a lot more seriously. And Matthew, I mean, your profile picture is hilarious. It's a drawing, but your banner image is you in a suit in front of the New York Stock Exchange logo.
Yeah. So that is very deliberate. That's why my cover photo is me, because I know my profile picture is not me. I get that it's a drawing. It happened a little bit by the way that I have my profile picture right now is a little bit of chance, a little bit deliberate, is someone offered to draw it. They're like, if you retweet this, I'll draw your avatar in MS Paint. I'm like, sure, whatever. So he did it, and I loved it so much, I just made it my profile picture. At the same time, my profile started growing. Like I started having like more followers, and I got more into the philosophy aspect of it, the more just kind of thinking about life kind of out loud. And I realized that if I had a cartoon drawing of me, it took away some of the pretentiousness. You know, it's a little bit of like, who does this guy think he is? And it's like, well, actually, you look at his picture. He can't think that much of him. And so, and now it's kind of like become my brand. I literally reached out to that guy again and bought the photo from him, bought the drawing from him, just in case like I ever want to do something with it. But more so that like it's become synonymous with my, if I changed my profile now, people wouldn't recognize me. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know my tweets.
Yeah. Had a similar question, Matthew, about the thinking behind changing your name to, parentheses, but only wearing Lululemon sweats, or the thing with Chipotle. Like, is it the same idea, just not taking yourself too seriously? Or
that's more like experimenting with fun ways that I think fun things you could do with brands. Kind of like I said earlier, like everything like that I come from has to do with interacting with brands and working at a company that does that. So I like just kind of having fun and saying like, guys, like, look at this. I got 1 million views on my tweets in the past, week or whatever it is. If you guys reached out to an influencer that's significantly more influential than me, think about what creative fun you could have. And so to me, it's just a fun kind of little experiment that I've been doing. And also I know some of them, like I know the people who run Chipotle. Okay. So I kind of like working with them.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. That was a blast. I learned a ton. For all of you who enjoyed that, who still have questions, write down your last, cheers everyone. Write down your last questions in the Q&A. Matthew and I can look at them, and then if they're interesting, we're happy to do another one of these in a couple months. But thank you for being here. I had a blast, and it was great hanging out with all of you.
No, same guys. It's so much fun. I appreciate you having me on, and you three were amazing at coordinating everything. You guys made it very seamless. I appreciate it.
There we go. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Anna. Everyone, a virtual round of applause for them helping us. All right, everyone. Good night.